that's why I started playing guitar. I'm Jim Whitley. I'm going to teach you some of the differences between acoustics and electrics and how to purchase your first guitar and features to look for. So, 3 things off the bat I would tell you not to do. Number 1, I wouldn't suggest buying a guitar for someone else because the feel, the weight of it, everything about it is going to be personal. So, unless you really know what you're looking for, I would not recommend buying a guitar for someone else because these features are very personal, like I said. You're hearing everything about it. Secondly, I would buy it used, and I'm going to teach you some of the things you need to look for. Actually, a lot of the things you need to look for. And basically, the first guy who owns that guitar is the one who's going to take a loss on it. Say a guitar costs $200, you're going to buy it for approximately $100 used. And when you go to sell it, you outgrow it, you don't like it anymore, whatever. You're going to probably sell it for about $100. So you come out even. And it's a great way to not lose money in the deal. Thirdly, I will tell you not to buy a Flying V or to buy a 12-string guitar. 12-string guitars absolutely sound fantastic, but there's limited use and they're a lot harder to learn on. The Flying V, it sits on one leg really well, which would be in here. If you put it over here, it's going to want to slide off. So I tell you not to do that. So going forward, what do you want to play like? Do you want to play like Ed Sheeran or Eddie Van Halen? The choice is up to you. What do you want to have? Eventually, if you keep on playing, you're probably going to wind up having both of these. There's many features that are similar to both guitars. So if you're only interested in one type of guitar, I would tell you to probably watch the whole thing because there might be something I might say off the top of my head that might apply to the electric or the acoustic. That doesn't necessarily go into where I'm saying it. So we're going to start with acoustics. Let's get started. Acoustic guitars. Body made out of wood. Strings can be steel or nylon. This body is rather small. This is called the parlor guitar. It's a little bit smaller in the body. I'm going to show you another guitar in a minute. We'll compare them. All of your sound is generated from the size of the body, the wood that it's made out of, the type of strings you have, and of course how hard or soft you pluck or strum the strings. So again, this one's a little bit smaller. It's a classical style and it's rounded at the top here. I'm going to show you this one. This is an acoustic electric, and I'm going to get to the electric part in a minute. But if you notice over here, it's got a cutaway, so you can get further up to the fretboard. I personally prefer this type of guitar because there's a lot more you can do with it, a lot more songs you can play with it. Again, there's nothing wrong with either one of them, it's just my personal preference. So, again, this is smaller in width, smaller in body size, and I shouldn't really do that. So this one has electronics in it. It's got an equalizer, it's got a volume knob. You can plug this into an amplifier if you're going to go play out somewhere. Also has a tuner, which is kind of handy. This is a Les Paul body style. It is an Epiphone special. This cost me $50. I bought it for my daughter because she wanted to start playing because I was making a lot of noise. And she seemed to like that. So she doesn't play anymore, but I still do. All of your power in electric guitar comes from the pickups, the strings, how hard and soft you strum them, and your amplification. So for a $50 guitar, this was actually very good. The pickups in it actually sound great. So what to look for in this electric guitar. Again, body style was a Les Paul style. What I do not like about the Les Paul body style, I'm going to show you this, is the pickup jack. So when I go to put this down, you see how it's already at a bad angle, and this is 4 feet in the air. And another thing to watch for when you buy these is the headstock. I will show you a Stratocaster headstock in a second, but you can see how this curves back. Stratocaster is pretty much straight. These have a tendency, if they're mistreated, to get cracked. My Stratocasters, well, at least one of them, I throw it around all the time, and I never have any problems with it. I never even worry about it breaking. But again, this is a pretty good guitar for 50 bucks, and I've been happy with it. This is a Stratocaster body style, and I don't mean to imply there's only two different types of body styles. There are others. The only one I would caution you against is the Flying V as your first guitar. We mentioned a couple things about the Les Paul body style and the neck especially. So let's take a look at the difference between those. This neck on this Stratocaster is pretty much straight up and down. And I have one that I pretty much leave out all the time, throw it around on the couch, and I've never had an issue with it, and I don't think I'm gonna have an issue with it because it just made the right way. The input jack, it's on the front of the guitar, and it really, I consider it to be the ideal placement. Some of them have an input jack on the Les Paul had an input jack on the bottom here, and that's the second best. I consider the worst place to have an input jack on the end, unless you're always just playing in a show. Being on the end, when you want to put this down at home on its stand, the cord is going to get bent all the time, and that just puts a lot of wear on the cord, so you're going to wind up going through cords. The story with this guitar, this is the only new guitar I own. I originally wanted a Les Paul Gibson Standard in a Desert Burst finish because I just loved it. I loved the look of it. And this is why I stress to try the guitars. This guitar, it just feels right. The neck on it is so much better for me personally. It's not as fat, it's not as wide, not as thick, and it just feels a lot better. The body on it weighs a lot less than the Les Paul did also. People can talk about sustain with guitars, and these are the things you're going to get into as your guitar experience goes along. But this is right for me, and it may not be right for you. But again, it has to be something you want to play. So even if it's a heavier guitar, it may be the body style you want. It may be the look you want, and that's what matters, because you need to pick up this guitar every single day to become better. So again, this is kind of a treat for me because I never take it out of its case because I'm afraid to scratch it. Like I said, it's the only new guitar I own, and I've had it for 6 or 7 years, 7 years, 8 years, and normally I have to play it in sweatpants and a sweatshirt because I'm afraid to scratch it. So this is kind of a treat. We've looked at electrics and acoustics. Let's take a look at a lot of the features that have a common between both of them. Some of them at the end will be really specific towards electrics. Well, let's start with the neck. And at the top of the neck you have the headstock. So the headstock has tuners, okay? Tuners, this is one of the things that help keep a guitar in tune. This one in particular, the tuners are kind of taken out of the equation because it has a locking nut. And the nut, I'm going to show you another guitar. If I can pick it up, that's a classic nut where the strings just slide through it. This one has bolts on it, and it actually holds the strings in place, okay? So the tuning pegs on this do all the tuning, and they're a big impact on how a guitar stays in tune. Cheaper guitars tend to not stay in tune as well. Now there's other impacts that have an influence on how well it stays in tune, aside from the tuners. The humidity, the temperature, if those remain constant, hopefully your guitar stays in tune pretty well. The neck. When you look at a neck when you're going to buy a guitar, you want that neck to be pretty much straight, okay? If it's a little curved, I have a little bit of a bow in my guitars, but you look right down that neck, and it should be pretty much straight. And if there is a little curve in it, that's okay, because it can be adjusted with a truss rod inside the neck. But you want to be the strings on both sides here, the top and the bottom, to be the same distance off of the fretboard. Now, occasionally what you can get is a twisted neck. I have never seen this personally, so I have no experience with it. I don't think it's correctable unless you replace the neck, which you can do on basically a throw-together parts guitar like this. You want to look at that neck and make sure it's straight, or at least it's even, the distance from the strings. So string height is determined by three things: the curvature of the neck, the height of the strings on top of the nut, and the height of the strings when it leaves the bridge. Those will determine the height of the strings off the fretboard. And at the 12th fret, you want to be able to slip a quarter under here, at least is what I've been told, and this is what I try and achieve. put a quarter under here without the quarter influencing the strings being pushed out. So if there's a big gap, you want to try and adjust that. With an acoustic, again, your sound is going to be the same pretty much at all times. You're not going to be able to change that. With an electric, you have a lot of options. So after we get down the neck here, I'm going to talk about pickups. Sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked. So frets, fret size. I've replaced all these frets and I put on jumbo frets. And we're going to try and show you this. So I don't know if you can see those, how high they are off of the fretboard, okay? Those make it easier to play. I have an acoustic here where the frets are really small. They're not that high off of the fretboard. And that makes it a little bit more difficult because when you want to get a perfect note, you need to get your finger right behind that fret in order to make the sound. Okay? Back to this guy. So again, I've changed the frets. We talked about the neck. This is a floating bridge in this guitar. Electric over here, this is a hardtail bridge. And what that means is on this one, you can put a whammy bar in and alter the string tension, which will change the sound of the notes that you've played. Okay, this one also has, electrics also have different pickups you can change. These are humbucker pickups as opposed to single coils that originally came in this guitar. That Les Paul body style has humbucker pickups. So there's a lot of things you can do with an electric. You can change all the electronics. Everything on this guitar has been upgraded. That was a lot of fun to do. But again, with an acoustic, you're kind of stuck with what you have. That pretty much sums up the guitar. Oh, the last thing, frets. When you run your hand up and down the side of this fretboard, you should not feel any burrs off of the frets that are sticking out the end. And they shouldn't really stick out the end. They should just be there. So that pretty much sums it up. And that's what to look for in a guitar. So I hope this has helped you, and I hope you have a lot of success, and I hope you enjoy playing. I know I do. I suck, but I enjoy playing. So with that, I'm going to plug this baby in, and we're going to give it a rip. Thanks for watching.
Mm-hmm.